Hello everyone. I'm Ted. And today we will discuss Chapter 19. Industrial Disputes and Settlement. And in this chapter we will be discussing industrial relations, concept, objectives and importance, conditions for sound industrial relations, industrial disputes, causes, industrial disputes in India, industrial disputes, preventive machinery, industrial disputes, settlement machinery. Let's start. Industrial relations, concept, objectives and importance. Industrial relations, concept, objectives and importance. 1. The term industrial relations refers to relationships between labor and management arising out of an employment contract. It also includes relations between workers and workers, workers and unions, employers and unions, employers employees, and government, employers employees and unions, etc. According to Dale Yoder, defined it as a relationship between management and employees or among employees and their organizations that characterize and grow out of employment. The following points are worth considering when we try to examine the term industrial relations in greater detail. Employer-employee interactions. Industrial relations arise out of employer-employee interactions. These relations cannot exist without the basic building blocks, i.e., the employer on one side and the employees on the other side. 2. Web of rules. Industrial relations area web of rules formed by the interaction of the government, the industry, and the labor. They include the relations between employer and employees and between employers' associations, trade unions as well as the state. 3. Multidimensional. Industrial relations are fairly multidimensional in nature as they are influenced by a complex set of institutional, economic, and technological factors. 4. Dynamic and changing. Industrial relations change with the times, generally keeping pace with the expectations of employees, trade unions, employers' associations, and other economic and social institutions in a society. Apart from the legal framework, these societal forces generally influence the direction of industrial relations within a country. 5. Spirit of compromise and accommodation. The industrial relations system is characterized by forces of conflict and compromise on either side. In the larger interests of society, both the employer and the employees must put out fires amicably and get along with each other in a spirit of compromise and accommodation. The individual differences and disagreements must be dissolved through persuasion and even pressure. The factors responsible for conflictful situations need to be resolved through constructive means. 6. Government's role. The government influences and shapes industrial relations with the help of laws, rules, agreements, awards of courts and emphasis on usages, customs, traditions, as well as the implementation of its policies and interference through executive and judicial machinery. 7. Wide coverage. The scope of industrial relations is wide enough to cover a vast territory comprising of grievances, disciplinary measures, ethics, standing orders, collective bargaining, participatory schemes, dispute settlement mechanisms, etc. 8. Interactive and consultative in nature. Industrial relations includes individual relations and joint consultation between labor, management, unions, state, etc. It pinpoints the importance of compromise and accommodation in place of conflict and controversy in resolving disputes between labor and management. Moving next. Objectives. Objectives of industrial relations. The fundamental objective of industrial relations is to maintain sound relations between employees and employers. The other objectives can be drawn from this objective. They are to enhance the economic status of the worker, regulate the production by minimizing industrial conflicts through state control, socialize industries by making the government an employer, provide an opportunity to the workers to have a say in the management and decision-making, Improve workers' strength with a view to solve their problems through mutual negotiations and consultation with the management. Encourage and develop trade unions in order to improve the workers' collective strength. Avoid industrial conflicts and their consequences. Extend and maintain industrial democracy. Moving next. Significance of industrial relations. Significance of industrial relations. Good industrial relations implies peaceful, harmonious, fruitful relations between labor and management. In such a situation, both labor and management realize their mutual obligations toward each other and resort to actions that promote harmony and understanding. The following benefits accrue from such a productive relationship. Industrial peace. Unilateral actions disappear. Both parties consult each other before initiating any action. They primarily focus on goals that are realizable without overstepping their territories. This leads to peaceful coexistence. Industrial democracy. The process of joint consultation paves the way for industrial democracy. This motivates workers to give of their best to the organization and share the fruits of progress jointly with management. Improve productivity. Cordial relations between labor and management ensures uninterrupted production and single-minded pursuit of predetermined goals. It becomes easy to realize even difficult targets in such an atmosphere. Benefits to workers. Cordial labor-management relations ensure higher productivity. The company would be in a position to offer fair economic and non-economic incentives to its employees. This, in turn, would spur people to realize targets and get ahead productively. It becomes easy for management to initiate needed changes quickly, in line with market demands, and improve the lot of workers continuously. Sound industrial relations enable a company to take full advantage of technological advancements and pass on some of these benefits to workers as well. Moving next. Essential conditions for sound industrial relations. Essential conditions for sound industrial relations. It is not easy to promote and maintain sound industrial relations. Certain conditions should exist for the maintenance of harmonious industrial relations. They are: 1. Existence of strong, well-organized, and democratic employees' unions. Industrial relations will be sound only when the bargaining power of the employees' unions is equal to that of management. A strong trade union can protect the employees' interest relating to wages, benefits, job security, etc. 2. Existence of sound and organized employers' unions. These associations are helpful for the promotion and maintenance of uniform personnel policies among various organizations and to protect the interests of weak employers. 3. Spirit of collective bargaining and willingness to resort to voluntary negotiations. The relationship between an employee and the employer will be congenial only when the differences between them are settled through mutual negotiation and consultation rather than through the intervention of a third party. Collective bargaining is a process through which employee issues are settled through mutual discussions and negotiations, through a give-and-take approach. If the issues are not settled through collective bargaining, they should be referred to voluntary arbitration but not to adjudication, in order to maintain congenial relations. 4. Maintenance of industrial peace. Permanent industrial peace in an organization can be ensured through the following measures. A. Establish machinery for prevention and settlement of industrial disputes. This includes legislative and non-legislative measures. Preventive measures include works committees, standing orders, welfare officers, shop councils, joint councils, and joint management councils. Settlement methods include voluntary arbitration, conciliation, and adjudication. B. Government should be provided with requisite authority for settling the industrial disputes wherever necessary. C. Provision for the bipartite and tripartite committees in order to evolve personnel policies, code of conduct, code of discipline, etc. D. Provision for the various committees to implement and evaluate the collective bargaining agreements, court orders, and judgments, awards of voluntary arbitration, etc. Moving next. Industrial disputes. Industrial disputes. Industrial conflicts constitute militant and organized protests against existing industrial conditions. They are symptoms of industrial unrest in the same way that boils are a symptom of a disordered body. The Industrial Disputes Act 1947 defines an industrial dispute as any dispute or difference between employees and employees, or between employees and employers, or between employers and employers, which is connected with the employment, or non-employment, or the terms of employment or with the conditions of work of any person. Thus, the term is characterized by the following factors. There should be a difference or dispute. For example, labor demands something, management does not grant the same. The dispute could be between employer-employer, employee-employee, or employer-employee. The dispute must pertain to some work-related issue. Dispute between one or two workmen and their employers is not an industrial dispute. Instead, it must be raised by a group or class of workmen. Moving next. Forms of industrial disputes. Forms of industrial disputes. The various forms of industrial disputes may be stated thus. Strikes. A strike is a spontaneous and concerted withdrawal of labor from production temporarily. It is a collective stoppage of work by a group of workers for pressuring their employers to accept certain demands. The Industrial Disputes Act 1947 has defined a strike as an assertion of work by a body of persons employed in an industry acting in combination, or a concerted refusal or a refusal under a common understanding of any number of persons who are or have been so employed to continue to work or to accept employment. Lockout. Lockout is the counterpart of strike. It is the weapon available to the employer to close down the factory till the workers agree to resume work on the conditions laid down by the employer. The Industrial Disputes Act of 1947 defined it as the closing of a place of an employment, or the suspension of work or the refusal of an employer to continue to employ any number of persons employed by him. If it is impossible to meet the demands of the workers, employers may decide to go for lockout. An employer may also pull down the shutters so as to bring psychological pressure on the workers to agree to his conditions or face closure of the unit. Gheraw. Gheraw means to surround. In this method, a group of workers initiate collective action aimed at preventing members of the management from leaving the office. This can happen outside the factory premises too. The persons who are gheraws are not allowed to move for a long time, sometimes even without food or water. The National Commission on Labor, while refusing to accept it as a form of industrial protest, opined that gheraws tend to inflict physical duress, as against economic pressure, on the persons affected and endanger not only industrial harmony but also create problems of law and order. Picketing and boycott. When picketing, workers often carry/display signs, banners, and placards, in connection with a dispute, prevent others from entering the place of work and persuade others to join the strike. Boycott aims at disrupting the normal functioning of an enterprise. Through forceful appeals and negative behavioral acts, striking workers prevent others from entering the place of work and persuade them not to cooperate with the employer. Moving next. Causes of industrial disputes. Causes of industrial disputes. Some of the prominent causes of industrial disputes may be listed thus. A. Employment. The list here includes disputes over wages, allowances, bonus, benefits, working conditions, unjust dismissals, retrenchment of workers, methods of job evaluation, changes in methods of production, non-implementation of awards of tribunals, etc. The National Commission on Labor remarked though on a majority of occasions industrial disputes were based on claims pertaining to the terms and conditions of employment, sometimes economic issues of a general character dominated and, on occasions, purely political motives. B. Nationalization. Workers protested against the introduction of rationalization, automation, computerization, e.g., bank unions oppose this move even now, on various occasions, fearing large-scale retrenchment. C. Administration-related causes. These pertain to ill treatment, undeserved punishment, verbal abuse, physical assaults, etc. D. Recognition. Disputes arose when employers failed to recognize a union as a bargaining agent. E. Sympathetic strikes. Workers struck work in one plant/industry when they wanted to exhibit their solidarity with striking workers from another plant or industry. F. Psychological/social causes, on occasion, family, friends, community, environmental pressures, and concerns also instigated the workers to take to the streets. G. Institutional causes, disputes arose on account of institutional factors such as recognition of unions, membership of unions, scope of collective bargaining, unfair practices. H. Political causes, political leaders have used unions as powerful weapons to build tensions inside a plant/industry with a view to satisfy their own private ends on a number of occasions, especially in unionized places like Mumbai, Ahmedabad, Kanpur, Calcutta, etc. Moving next. Industrial disputes in India. Industrial disputes in India. Industrial dispute in the form of a strike or a lockout is a double-edged sword. It means stoppage of work, causing production loss to the employer. The worker, at the same time, is pushed to the wall as he loses his earnings. Disputes were not widespread in India before the First World War, 1914 to 1918. Workers were largely illiterates, had no organizing powers, and clearly lacked strong union leaders who could fight on their behalf and deliver the goods. A timeline on major industrial unrest/upheavals in India may be provided thus. 1. 1918 to 1920. Many strikes during this period. People were ever eager to fight for their democratic rights. 1919. More than a lakh workers of Bombay cotton textile mills went on strike. 1920. More than 200 strikes affecting near 1.5 lakh workers. 2. 1921 to 1928. After the First World War, employers were keen to introduce rationalization to cut wages with a view to cope with sluggish demand conditions. Disco shutdown, railway strikes and strikes in Bombay cotton textile mills were common. Increased tendency to use strikes as a powerful weapon. Binny & Co. affected by strike/lockout. Buckingham and Carnatic mills closed down. Formation of ILO in 1919, ATUC in 1920, Trade Union Act in 1926, Industrial Disputes Act, 1929, a conciliation machinery was provided for setting disputes peacefully. 3. 1929 to 1939. Depression hit the industry sadly. 1928, 1929, intense industrial unrest. 1930 to 1937, relatively peaceful, bearing short-lived strikes in Bombay cotton mills and a general strike in Mumbai. 1937 to 1939, unrest increased. The Congress Party's manifesto raised workers' hopes. In 1937 and 1938, the number of strikes was 379 and 399 respectively. 1939, 406 disputes involving nearly 5 lakh workers. The Second World War, 1939 to 1945, worsened the situation further. 4. 1939 to 1945. Sep. 1939, war broke out. Inflation and rising prices, high cost of living, low purchasing power of workers. Disputes rose from 322 in 1940 to 694 in 1942. Between 1939 to 1945, 4,000 strikes led to a loss of 31.5 million man-days. A large number of strikes revolved around the issue of dearness allowance. In 1940, 1,75,000 Bombay textile workers struck work for over 40 days. Defense of India rules framed, paving the way for compulsory adjudication of disputes and prohibiting strikes during the court proceedings. 1942 to 1946 was relatively free from large-scale strikes/lockouts. 5. 1940 to 1947. Between 1940 to 1947, a total of 7,009 strikes took place affecting cotton, woolen and silk mills badly, followed by unrest in engineering, railways, mining, etc. Demands for higher wages and bonus were the main causes of disputes. Bombay, now Mumbai, was the most troublesome city, 542 strikes, followed by the states of Bengal, MP and up during this period. 6. Post-independence 1947 to 1974. Tall promises made by Congress Party raised hopes among the workers, cost of living went up steeply, the fear of retrenchment was uppermost in the minds of workers, communists influenced the thinking of working class under the circumstances. Intense labor unrest in railways, P&T in 1949, textile and jute mills suffered most. Code of discipline was evolved in 1958. Girows, bonds, strikes were quite common over rising prices and growing retrenchment in recession-hit industries. 7. Post-emergency 1975 to 1990. During the emergency period, 1975 to 1977, the number of disputes fell sharply. However, during this period lockouts affected the industrial relations scene badly. The suppressed feelings of helplessness and frustration found outlet after the emergency was lifted. Datta Samant emerged as a strong trade union leader in Bombay, now Mumbai. In January 1982, the largest textile strike involving 2.5 lakh workers from over 60 mills was organized, causing a loss of over 500 crores to workers and mill owners. Production loss was estimated at over 2,000 crores. Several mills were closed. The strike had a sad ending. 8. Post-liberalization. After liberalization, 1990 onwards, the cloud of unions was reduced drastically. Strikes organized by Rajan Nair, Chand Bibi, Dungi Netterwala did not yield major benefits to workers. The Datta Samant-led agitation in Premier Automobiles Limited failed miserably. A steady reduction in the number of disputes is discernible. From 1810 strikes recorded in 1991, the figure came down to 295 in 2002. The number of mandates lost due to strikes has also fallen steadily. The trends indicate a shift in balance of power since 1993. The mandate loss figures suggest the management flexing their muscles, locking out units rather than the workmen forcing the hand of management through strike action. In major cities like Calcutta, Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi, Bangalore, trade unions are just fighting for survival now. The militancy, which was almost synonymous with labor unions in the past, has, by and large, declined now. The Shiv Sena-led Bharatiya Kamgar Sena was more pragmatic and was quick to understand the shifting trends. In the Mumbai and Pune belt it enjoys membership of over 2.5 lakh workers. Mill owners are also happy to deal with such unions which give importance to plant-level factors and conduct the negotiations in a give-and-take manner. Broadly speaking, the states of AP, Karnataka, Kerala, Maharashtra, Rajasthan, and West Bengal together accounted for over 75 per unit of total number of disputes. Disputes in manufacturing industries were quite high. 30 to 40% of disputes arose in railways, textiles, coal, docks and ports, insurance, banking and plantations. In public sector, disputes were frequent in steel, P&T, railways, ports, LIC, Indian Airlines and fertilizer units. More than half of disputes, 30%, arose on account of income factors, wages, allowances, bonus, followed by causes relating to indiscipline, personnel and charter of demands. Layoffs were relatively high in Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, UP, Maharashtra, Kerala, Karnataka and Rajasthan when compared to other states. Moving next. Industrial disputes in India 2015 to 2017. Industrial disputes in India 2015 to 2017. In what seems to indicate an improvement in industry labor relations, incidents of strikes, lockouts, and the resultant loss of mandates reduced during the past 3 years. The number of strikes across industrial units fell to 80 during the January-October period of 2017 from 86 in the same period of 2016 and 97 in 2015. Similarly, lockouts went down to 11 during the 10-month period of the last year from 15 in the same period of 2016 and 22 in 2015. The mandates lost as a result sharply declined to 13,51,850 in the January-October period of 2017 from in 2016 and 29,82,790 in 2015. However, The number of workers affected due to strikes and lockouts in the 10-month period of 2017 exceeded the respective numbers of 2016 and 2015. While the cumulative number of affected workers were in 2017, it was in 2016 and in 2015. The progressive improvement in industrial relations augurs well for the country's investment climate and ranking in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business Index, where India for the first time stormed into the top 100 list. Immediately after assuming office, the Narendra Modi government took up the long-pending labor reforms with the objective of making India a global manufacturing hub and ensuring the ease of doing business. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. This video is brought to you by Bookstune. Like this video to encourage us. Share this video to spread the knowledge. And subscribe to this channel for latest update.